Right, YouTube, Shadow King Nazru. So, I've been on a few forums, few YouTube comments. They were Rosario Vampire related, and I'm sure there's probably some of you wondering why am I still talking about Rosario Vampire, because I just did the final chapter review. Is that I still like that series, and I will be talking about it every now and then. Uh, Most like most likely I'll be talking about it again should it ever get an anime reboot. And speaking of which, one of the topics was that whether or not the anime should be rebooted. And uh, yeah, it's pretty much like how the DBZ Kai and DBZ thing went out. There was pretty much a flame war. People wanted to stick to the nostalgia of the Gonzo anime over the possibility of a Rosario Vampire anime reboot, but despite the possibility that it would most likely be more accurate to the manga, and they said that it doesn't need to be rebooted. It was close enough to the manga that it could continue to a season 3. Really. Okay, let's try to analyze this whole ridiculousness of this whole thing. So, I wholeheartedly disagree that the Rosario Vampire anime was good. I just wholeheartedly disagree that it was accurate enough to continue on and add more stuff into the manga because that would just create more problems. Now, here, I suppose the best way to discuss this is how it's just like go through what Gonzo did wrong. So let's just get started, shall we? We start off with the first episode, which was about 80% accurate to the manga. It's still about Tsugune going to Yokai Academy and realizing it's the scope of monsters, still meeting Mocha, learning she's a vampire, him being frightened out of his mind and wanting to get the hell out of there. And they still have Sideshow still being a bully and also a person who wants to kill humans and rape women, what have you. And Skinny learns that did not judge all monsters, they're not all bad. And he eventually helps Mocha turn into Inner Mocha so she can fight Sideshow, yada yada yada. Fairly enough, it's accurate. Though they did omit the part where Sideshow asked what kind of monster Skune is. And Skune lied off his ass and said that he was a vampire. Now, at first hand, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but this did set up the fact that vampires were considered to be the most powerful of the monsters and to be highly feared. Which would set up the hierarchy of the monsters and just show how potent these vampires are. But not too big. The episode with Kurumu, the introduction was actually was pretty much 99% accurate. So there's not much to go on there. There were a few things here and there, but that wasn't really all that too much of a problem. Yukari episode was actually one of the most accurate adaptations the anime actually did. And then we had the filler episode where these fanboys of Yukari, Kurumu, and Mocha get jealous of Skinne and try to fight him off for the girl's affection or whatever. And it's filler, so I really don't give much of a shit about that. Uh, though, uh, I will say that the one problem uh, is that Yukari was not, they had Yukari show up earlier than she was supposed to. She was supposed to show up after they had met Gin, who who they didn't meet until after they set up the club. I mean, they started joining the clubs, and that was after they met the whole mermaid episode thing. And the mermaid episode didn't happen until after the fifth episode in the anime, which creates a bit of, which means that the order is out of place, and this will kind of screw up the development. And this would also add a bit of pointless scenes, such as Kurumu and Yukari bickering over Skune, though granted that's a running gag in the manga too, but that had a little bit more purpose to it. And let's see what else. There was also that Gin episode where they changed what happened of Kurumu helping Skune discover that Gin was the one who was peeping on the girls and he framed it. They changed it to Kurumu and Yukari basically playing Sherlock Holmes. I mean, that's clever, granted, but they had to add in some things to make it seem to make it actually work. So yeah, I can't really give it full credit. Let's see. I could also talk about the excess of fan service, and I know that's one of the favorite things about the fans. And granted, I do like the fan service every now and then, but when they just keep throwing it in your face non-stop, like every 30 seconds, it loses its impact. I'm reminded of what the Nostalgia Critic said in his Transformers Age of Extinction review, compared to how with Michael Bay and explosions. When we first saw an explosion, it was awesome. This giant ball and gas of fire and death, which was we never seen it before. We were so awed by it, and we wanted more. And then we got more with the Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone era stuff, and we just keep wanting more. And then we got to the Michael Bay stuff, which he just keeps giving it and giving us and giving us, and we just got too greedy with it. And we had so many of it that we don't even care about it anymore. And explosion is not this awesome thing anymore. It doesn't even register as anything to us. It's more like air. You don't even feel it. And it's the same thing with the fan service. It just got oversaturated and you just don't care anymore. And they practically sacrificed plot and character development for it. Let's see what else. They also brought in Mizure a bit early, and she wasn't doing much within the manga. So yeah, that was a problem. And another serious problem was what they did with Ruby. They tried to make her the main villain of the Witch No arc instead of her master, and they made it that Ruby was mentally unstable due to the death of her master, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense of how can she still be talking to her, or why the vines restraining her when she quote unquote disobeyed her master, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And there was also the thing with the safety committee, starting with Kato. They they gave her 3 sidekicks, which are pretty much add nothing to the plot. And they, instead of showing the brutality and oppression, the oppressive side of the public safety committee, they started off with them serving off as a rivaling newspaper group. and that's kind of pathetic, really. Then they also had uh, Kuyo and the gang uh, have a public safety committee member discuss say that Skune is possibly human based on a rumor, and yeah, the reason why he started to suspect Skune was human in the manga was because Hitomi Ishigami told him that Skune was human because she had tasted his flesh when she bit him as a Gorgon. But Hitomi Ishigami is nowhere to be found in this anime, and considering she had a huge factor into the manga, that creates a bit of a problem, and that can't make the anime very accurate, and that's going to lead to problems later. Uh, and it involves them interrogating, and eventually Skune watching his friends get tortured and interrogated more or less. He confesses he's human. But in the manga, uh, Kuyo is led to be skeptic about this and ultimately debunks it since Skune turned into a vampire and before Kuyo could confirm that he was human, and thus he thinks that Hitomi Ishigami lied to him. So yeah, that pretty much already screws up the plot. And furthermore, this leads to another huge problem that it was in the manga Skune who defeated Kuyo, but instead, when Mocha turns him into a vampire, Skune in the anime just picks up Mocha and Mocha defeats Kuyo. He ultimately does nothing with his new vampire power and strength. Yeah. So that was the entire first season, and at best we're about 60% manga and 40% filler, which is not all too good an all too good ratio. So we already see that the anime is not being fairly accurate, and this is already going to start causing problems. And I think that I'm going to have to make this into a multi-part video because I need to explain just how much royally the anime screwed this over and how it can't possibly work anymore for the season 3. So I'll discuss that at another time.